Okay, hi everyone. I'm Dan Troxell, and you've joined us for another ArtWeek TV Arts interview. And today I've got Steven Vail, gallery owner, appraiser, and art dealer. Welcome.
Thank you, Dan. Pleasure to be here. Now that we have the dynamics figured out.
That's right. You didn't know I was also a tech support technician.
No. But I know who I'll be calling from now on.
Oh my God. I'm going to unlist my number. So Steve, you were a finance major at Drake. How did you ever end up as an art dealer?
I really couldn't sit still in college, and I left school. It sounds horrible, but I did, and I needed to find a way to live. And my mother actually was a collector of many things, art included, and I decided that to get by week, I'm 50 years old now, but back then I was obviously college age. I bought a few pieces of art and sold a few pieces of art, and it just sort of spiraled out of control over the years.
That's okay. So that's interesting. So your mom was a collector, but how did you avoid the collecting bug, as it were? I mean, you bought art that you probably thought was, or I'm going to guess you thought was, beautiful or valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Was it hard to let go?
Oh, it still is, actually. I mean, if I picked my camera up and moved it around the room, you would see that it's full of my precious objects. Anywhere from Norman Bloom to Luther Utterback to Andrew Spence to Judith Shea, and the other room is Michael Mulhern. And it really is difficult to let things go. It really is. But those are the works I actually seek because those are the works I like to offer.
And they are yours for the time that you have them. So
well, I like to think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, and I also understand you have a degree in Dadaism. Tell me about that.
I do. I have. I was actually visiting with a friend of mine in Connecticut earlier about this, and I mentioned that, and he said, if I start talking about Dada, I'm going to just sound crazy. I mean, as far as the movement, but it's an honorary degree, and it's from the University of Iowa, and I worked a lot with the professor, Steven Foster at the time, who was the chairman of the art history department for 25 years. And it really was more of a gesture rather than academic achievement. We had a lot of, back and forth as far as information exchange, and then Hans Brader was part of that also, and so it was ceremonial and everything, but it wasn't. I don't know. Again, it was more of a gesture than it was an honor bestowed upon me. But
so when did you receive that? Just recently, or?
Oh, actually, we lost Steven Foster probably a year and a half ago, but it was probably 10 years ago. or a little bit more. And then Hans Brader passed away probably 2 years ago. But I had a lot of involvement in the Dada archive and working with Stephen Foster and working with Hans, and I guess it was my pat on the back.
So that must have been a tremendous opportunity to be so immersed right in the midst of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would not be where, if I'm anywhere today, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for Stephen Foster. He, again, he was the director, or the chairman of the Department of Art History for 25 years at the University of Iowa. Then when he retired, he actually came to work for the gallery. And then we started Foster Vail Fine Arts. And then he pursued more of an academic perspective, and I was more of a dealer. And so we did split, but we talked every day and worked together.
So you were collecting works of art, and I'm going to assume that since you started with that first piece, that you've continued, and it's sort of picked up on its own, taken on its own life. At what point did you decide you needed a gallery, or was that something that became an opportunity with you with Steven?
It wasn't so much about opening a shop as it was having a neutral space where people felt comfortable, where I could show the work.
Right.
And the first work I placed was by Crash, the graffiti artist from back in the 80s. And I had spent a lot of time in New York at the time, and I met Christo and Klaus Oldenburg and Joseph Kosuth and many others. And I sort of, in my early 20s, existed there just by having their works on paper and selling them to people. And when I came back here, I thought the same principle would apply. And I asked Davis Sanders, former president of RDG in Des Moines, he owned a building on Southwest 5th, if he would build me a gallery. And I never thought he would say yes. I was just kind of poking at him. And he said, "Let me talk to my wife and I'll get back to you tomorrow." And I got that phone. I got the phone call the next day, and he said, "We have a deal."
Jeez.
And so we began bringing in the work there. And there weren't a lot of, there still are not a lot of, but fine art galleries at the time. And
You mean locally?
mm-hmm. Or even regionally, we were bringing in work. Wow. But it was a smaller space. It was just a wide open space. And we were there for probably 8 years. And then because the quality of the work or the price of the work or whatever, our insurance went up, and we moved to the financial center, 18th floor. And that's when Stephen Foster came to work for us. Still sounds funny when I say it. And we had Hans Richter exhibition. We had a Weldon Keys exhibition. We had the collection of Harold Rosenberg, which was literally Philip Guston, Franz Klein, Mark Rothko, Ibram Lassa, Helen Frankenthaler, and they were paintings. And I don't know if the people in Des Moines didn't get it or they were unaware, but it garnered little interest. And so then Stephen and I started Foster Vail Fine Arts as private dealers and went more global than local, which today still holds true.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question, but you sort of answered it, which was, is everything viewed and sold in-house?
No. I love it when it happens, and that's why we have a storefront here. But I like to keep as much material in Des Moines, Iowa, and maybe it's an ego thing, but I always have this vision in my head of 20 or 30 years from now, someone seeing a label that says Steven Vail Fine Arts on the back of it, and how did this get here? But most of our work, last work went to Chicago, before that, West Palm Beach, before that, I think Miami, and then prior to that, Belgium. But we deal with museum quality, international artists, and so we have a larger audience than we would have.
So I just kind of like sort of humorously framed a question here, saying that I wanted to hear about the Republic of Ireland. Do you have any connections there? And no, I don't mean Northern Ireland. I mean Republic of Ireland. So,
the Dublin?
In Dublin, yeah, where the Guinness always flows at 52 degrees.
We do represent an artist named Mazer, who is Irish. We represent Mark Francis, who was born in Ireland but lives in England now. But our public relations specialist has moved to Ireland, but we represent Chelsea Jacobs, who recently moved there.
Right.
And so it's really interesting to see how the transition from her working here, living and working here versus there. And especially in this political climate. And she definitely has a political opinion to her work. But we don't have a gallery there. I mean, we have a very small client list there, but we have a very small client list in several different countries, so it all adds up.
So how do you decide upon a particular artist for representation? Is it just in the middle of your interest genre, which I think you said is mid-century American art? Or are there other factors that you consider for something?
I feel like no matter the gallery, it sort of is the director or the owner. It's their personality and where they've traveled, what they have seen. And we're a little bit different than people in Des Moines because I've gone different places and I've seen different material. I mean, John Armletter from Switzerland would be a great example. And my basis, I would say, would be mid-century American. It could be Ugo Rondinoni. It could be wherever I go.
So really, it's what you appreciate that determines
And
your
I
choice.
think that I feel like that's true about any gallery owner. It's where they've been, what they've seen, and what they appreciate, and what they want people to see and experience.
So if there's a collector out there that knows the kind of art that you have in stock, I'll call it in stock. That might not be the right term, but would they know to call Steven Vail because of that particular genre that they're interested in, and you have it?
Ironically, less in Des Moines than nationally or internationally. We do more business from coast to coast, or even in larger metropolitan cities in the United States, or through Europe, or even China or Latin America, than we do in our own hometown. But we hope to change that, actually, and that's why we have our doors open, and we've got a big 6-foot LED sign. We want people to feel comfortable and come on in, but most of our business is conducted, it seems, outside the state. We have done consulting work for Principal Financial, American Republic Insurance. I mean, the companies in Des Moines that are known to have significant collections, but as far as daily commerce, it's pretty much outside Iowa. But we would really like to change that, make my life a lot easier.
So now, when we talked before, I made some notes and wanted to ask you more about Henry Moore. That was part of the conversation. What can you tell me about that?
We had a Henry Moore exhibition that was the first non-institutional, meaning not in a museum, exhibition. I hesitate to use the word commercial gallery, but of his works in edition in the United States. We also had the first solo show, non-institutional, the Soloist, and we had the first exhibition of Czechoslovakia's self-portraits in addition. But Henry was, I talk about him like I know him, but of course I didn't, but he, British artist, and we worked in conjunction with another gallery, and it was a really solid exhibition. We really didn't get any press here at all, but we did get a review in Hong Kong, and it said, works in edition, I mean, just as I described it, um, in the United States.
Interesting. So now you mentioned you want to change the dynamics of how your market is, local versus national or international. You want to bring more local business in. How will you go about doing that? What are your plans there?
There's a big message, and we're not sure how to get it across, but maybe I need to go to Dublin and visit with our PR person. But people, I won't say we walk in lockstep with the Des Moines Arts Center, but we have an awful lot in common with their contemporary collection. And people seem to be under the impression that to acquire a work from us, it will cost them $20,000, $30,000. And I mean, we've even had, which is not the case. We've had pre-publication offerings to our clients that were under $1,000 and collected by museums. And it's a complicated thing because when I was younger, the Des Moines Register had a art section that was an inch thick. And they get smaller and smaller and smaller. And now I would be shocked if it was even a page. And so there's just no communication, really. And that's one of the reasons I appreciate what you're doing. In other words, you don't have to be wealthy, and you don't have to make a major sacrifice to get quality work.
Right.
That you could, Brian Alfred, you could take a trip, go to a major museum and see one of his on the wall. But that's difficult. It's a difficult thing to get across because I feel like there's an intimidation factor, and there just simply shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm. Well, I look forward to seeing your business grow in that regard. That'll be interesting to watch.
Yes, I mean, it would be easy for me to be a private dealer as I was once before, but this is my hometown, and I was born and raised here, and we're right on Gateway West, half a block from the Papa John sculpture.
And
garden.
And you're very close to a brewery too, which I think is an important selling point. And the food is good too. So,
yes.
Well, thanks so much. On the show today, we've had Steven Vail. Steve, thank you. I appreciate you sharing your time and thoughts about yourself and your art and your business. You can check out. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I said, if I seem a little slow, it's because it's past my bedtime. Because we do commerce in so many different countries, I'm in different time zones. And
sure.
A lot of people think there's something slightly wrong with me. And there may be, but.
So you can check out Steven Vail's Projects Room on Facebook or at www.stevenvailfinearts.com. And I also want to remind, yes, please.
Just stevenvail.com. Like Vail, Colorado.
Mm-hmm. All righty. And just a reminder about Art Week. It's from June 19th through June 26th. You can check out the events, the virtual and online events at that website. And use the tip jar if you see any art that you like that is coming through any of those events and you want to support the artists, please do. Buy their art too, for that matter.
Yeah, I would like to say that we do have some very gifted artists in Des Moines living now, where I've been in this business 22 years, and that was not always the case, but it certainly is now. And so all of the galleries deserve attention.
Great, thank you for that. So this is Dan Troxell signing off.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Steve.